That's so RuPaul coded. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome to Wholala.
Welcome to Wholala. We once did an AI voice generator to try and make RuPaul promote Wholala, and that was roughly how it sounded. Welcome to Wholala.
I always wonder how American people say Wholala, and we've never spoken about this on the podcast. The only reference I had for it was like a hate podcast where their whole theme for a podcast is just ripping into other podcasts, and they took a Wholala episode and just like dragged us to the ground in not a fun way, but they were American. They were like Wholala.
It wasn't even a good read. They just like misunderstood what our sarcasm was. And just read it like in the most literal way they could. It reflected on them very poorly.
Yeah, no, literally. They were like, what? They like Doctor Who? And it was like, yeah. Like you're on a Doctor Who podcast.
That's
darling. That's the podcast. How are you, Alasdair?
I'm a little bunged up, Sam. You know what? I'm a little bunged up. I think I've started to catch a cold, which is okay because it's contained itself at the minute to my nose. But apologies in advance for anyone listening thinking, well, he sounds even worse than normal, because that's what that is.
That's okay. I've had mine, I'm not going to lie, be vulnerable. My nose has been like a tap today.
Oh,
it's getting us both. You know what? We can't catch a ball for shit, but we can catch a cold.
We really can. But it's fine. We're going to get out of our systems. We're actually going on a little holiday together in a couple of weeks. So as long as it's gone before then, I'm happy.
Literally, as soon as you told me you were getting it, I was like, get that out of your system.
Get that out.
Get that out.
Get those T cells up now.
We'll be in the sun. We'll be getting our vitamin D. We'll be lying on the beach with a rum punch. It's going to be glorious.
Oh, it'll be lovely. Absolutely lovely.
It'll be lovely. Well, look, before then, we've got a lot of fun Doctor Who to get into. And I'm really excited about this week's episode.
Yeah, this is a fun one. I was really excited when we said last week that we were diving into the TV movie. You may recall, if you listen through to the very end, my excitement, because I have seen it. I had seen it a very long time ago. I have obviously rewatched it for this episode, but it's been a long time since I'd seen it, and I couldn't totally remember the story beyond kind of a few sort of flashes of bits I remembered seeing with kind of the Master in a cape and green eyes and the Eye of Harmony and some lightning effects, and that was kind of it. And now it's all come back to me.
Yeah, it's weird. It's one of those ones that I used to have on DVD, and I didn't get it. I remember not getting it for a while. Like as a kid, I dipped into Classic Who through the DVDs because that was the only real way you could watch it. I think I've said before on the podcast, I had like Genesis of the Daleks and the Five Doctors and a few ones like that. And then I remember like having to seek out the TV movie because you can only really buy it like CX or HMV or something. And I probably didn't watch it until I was like 16, and I probably hadn't really seen it since not long after that until rewatching it for this. So I'm excited to jump into it. It's a lot of fun memories flooding back.
It's really interesting as well because by the Doctor Who movie, you might think it's like an especially epic blockbuster story. And I think within context, it is, because up until this point, and maybe even now, it's the most expensive Doctor Who story. At the time, I think it cost $5 million.
Yeah.
Don't know what that converts to now. But like almost placed alongside a modern story, it doesn't feel that out of place for almost like a series opener.
This is the thing. I mean, we'll go into it, but a big like controversy when this came out is that it was really breaking the mold for what Doctor Who was, and it was very like controversial. Like, this isn't the Doctor Who I know. You're changing this, you're doing that. And to be honest, it's really like the precursor to modern Who, like for New Who. This isn't out of the box for New Who, and like it doesn't feel that wild to us looking back on it with today's lens. But at the time, this was a big thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of elements in this that are still really familiar and feel like New Who. Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't really recognise until looking into this that this was really a TV pilot.
Yeah.
More than it's a movie. And really, I think when you see it as an almost like a proof of concept of the American Doctor Who TV series, like this works on screen. It makes more sense, I think, watching it than it does to think of it as a movie.
It doesn't quite have the same ring to it, does it? Doctor Who, the TV pilot.
Yeah, Doctor Who, the Fox TV pilot.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to dive into a little bit of the information about how this film got made. But before that, should we dive into a little bit of context for the movie?
Oh, go on. Give us context for the movie.
So Doctor Who, the TV movie, otherwise known as Doctor Who, the movie, originally aired on the 12th of May, 1966.
Sam is wrong. He meant to say 1996. Silly goose.
And it had a UK viewership of 9.1 million, which was actually considerably good. It did well in the UK. I think they were hoping for something like 12, 13 million, but it was a very respectable viewership. But it only reached 5.6 million in the US, which was a lot worse than they wanted. And it currently sits, I say currently as if this is going to change, maybe Wholala will change some people's minds, at 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb.
And this TV movie aired 7 years after Doctor Who was last shown on the BBC and put on. Was it put on permanent hiatus, or was it like
an indefinite hiatus?
Hiatus.
They didn't officially cancel it, but they did say we're taking it off the air. And the big thing about Doctor Who in this era, in the wilderness years, is that the BBC really didn't want anything to do with it. It was seen as a dying brand. It was seen of the past era of the BBC, and they wanted to move into a new era of different shows and content. And they really wanted to kind of disassociate themselves from the show. And it took a lot of convincing by other people for the BBC to allow them to make this movie.
They said that's cringe.
They said it's giving
that's really
ick.
cringe.
That's really cringe. Can't we do that?
They
That's
said
really giving me the ick.
Doctor Who ick. Gross. And British-American TV producer Philip Segal had been trying for years to launch a new American-produced series of Doctor Who, but the Fox network, who were the only American network who had any interest in doing this, was only prepared to commit to a single telemovie, and if that telemovie was successful, they hoped that Fox might be persuaded to reconsider a full series.
Exactly. Do you know who was actually weirdly involved in the development of the TV movie?
No, please tell me.
Steven Spielberg.
Oh, yes.
He was.
Weird. Yeah.
So I believe that the three companies that were putting money into this were Amblin Entertainment, which is Steven Spielberg's production company, Fox, and the BBC. I think the BBC put in like 300 grand, and then the rest of the 5 million budget was between the two other production companies. It was very American led.
Okay.
And this, you're exactly right, this was trying to be pitched as a full TV series. John Leckie was also incredibly involved in the production of this movie. It was originally hoped to be pitched as a pilot movie for a 22 episode series, 45 minutes an episode. And if you think about New Who, that was 13 episodes, it's now going down to 8 for 45-minute runtime. That is a lot of content.
Yeah. Oh,
that's intense. And I feel like this kind of like got chipped down and down. He was like, okay, we'll do a movie in a 22 episode series. Okay, now we'll do a movie and an 8 episode series. Okay, just now give us a movie and like maybe give us a TV show afterwards. If we're really good, if we do really, really good. But he made this sort of almanac, this Bible called the Leaky Bible. I'm pretty sure it's Leaky, not Leckie, called the Leaky Bible, which was a pitch circulated around Amblin television executives to pitch this TV show. And you haven't read this, have you?
I haven't. I didn't get time. You sent me a PDF today and I didn't get time to look at it. So you have to talk me through it as if I'm a listener.
Oh, well, dear listener and Alasdair, let me tell you a little bit about this. So it basically was written from the perspective of President Barusa, who was a president in classic era of Doctor Who. And it's pitching the TV. It's kind of explaining to you what this TV show is going to be. And it goes into like episode by episode detail. But it's all as if it's written by like Barusa's journal. And to completely paraphrase it, there's little elements that do bleed into the TV movie. So the Doctor being half human is one of them. It being a big story centering around the Doctor and the Master is another one of them. But in this original pitch, President Barusa dies and his spirit goes into the TARDIS. So the Doctor kind of, I believe, speaks to Barusa kind of like what's that movie? What's the TV show with the guy who talks to the talking car?
What, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Oh my god, let's say Jim. No, it's
Herbie.
No, it's not Herbie. It's okay. This is I'm gonna get cancelled for this. The only reference I have for this actor is the guy in SpongeBob, in the SpongeBob movie, who's real and he like his pecs. David Hasselhoff. There's a TV show.
Do you mean Herbie?
No, I don't mean Herbie. It's from like the 70s and he's got like a talking car and he's like a cop. Anyway, someone tweet us if you know what that is.
Sam means Knight Rider. What is wrong with him this episode?
Someone will know it. But it's like the Doctor talking to Barusa, but like through his spirit in the TARDIS. And the whole series was going to be about the Doctor looking for his dad, like his Gallifreyan dad. The Master, I believe, has killed... He either killed Bruce or he killed Brathon. The Master's now president of Gallifrey. And it's all these adventures leading up to the Doctor in this big finale on Gallifrey trying to become like president of Gallifrey. But the premise was that they remake old episodes of classic Doctor Who. There's episodes like Genesis of the Daleks, The Ark in Space, Earthshock. but they change it. So some of them they change a little bit, some of them they change a lot. One of the things they change, and I won't go into the whole thing, I think genuinely we could do a whole episode on this, is that I think the Master, they meet Davros, and then the Master kills Davros, and then we see the Daleks look like Daleks, but then their casing kind of opens up. I think I texted you a picture of it. It opens up to reveal this like mutant Khaled inside that then like flies, and it's like this big flying mutated spider thing. It gets crazy in there.
Yeah, I remember people really not liking that because what's that thing Russell T Davies said? He always said like it shouldn't ever be changed too much, the Dalek design, because if you go too far from the Pepper Pot, it's no longer a Dalek, it's a robot.
Yeah,
and I think that's why people kind of reject that experimentation. It's interesting. I'd seen that before, and I'd almost seen like that CGI test that is going around on YouTube of like the Spielberg Dalek, and I think that might be kind of a similar exploration for how they could have done that. And I don't mind it. Like I have lots of bad opinions about Daleks, but I always like a bit of experimentation with where we can go with Daleks.
I don't hate new designs and stuff. I think that there definitely has to be some link to the originality and the original source material. And I also think with Daleks in particular, there's, even within the TV movie that we got at the very beginning, you hear them go like, exterminate, in like that really weird voice. I'm like, there's only so much you can really stray from a Dalek before it doesn't become a Dalek anymore.
Yeah.
But I won't go into it too much because I think that there's a whole other episode in there somewhere. But it's interesting seeing what little things did bleed through into the actual movie.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of concepts within that. It's fascinating to think about the universe where the US series was picked up. And I imagine it could have done all right as well. It's the funny thing. It's a weird time as well in that this is pre-Buffy, isn't it?
Yeah.
96. And I think fan culture at this time was very different as well. Is the US series something I would have fallen into? Probably not.
I reckon what probably would have happened is that they would have, because I think with the original pitch as well, like that they wanted it to be completely separate from the original show. It was a complete reboot, completely different, nothing to do with the original. I think if they had somewhat made it, so say the movie that was made was successful and it was very much the Seventh Doctor passing over to the Eighth, I think it would have had its, few seasons run in the States and eventually run its course and ended. And then people in the UK would be like, oh, that was the crappy American reboot.
Right.
And then what they wouldn't have been able to do is continue the story of Classic Who anymore because that had gone into the American one. And what we probably would have eventually gone is New Who, but then that would have been a brand new reboot as well. That would have been completely unconnected.
Yeah. Very weird to imagine. Because there's this kind of like, there was this core following in the Wilderness Years, many of whom went on to actually work on Doctor who at the time were kind of writing the books and very active in forums and were themselves working in television. And I wonder what a lot of them would have thought of it, whether the BBC would have been so interested in making their version of it. I guess, I don't know, how would the rights even worked? Would they not still have been co-producing it? Is it not still the BBC's Doctor Who?
Well, this is the thing. There's been a huge rights battle with anything to do with this TV movie, which is why it took so long for Paul McGann to be able to do Doctor Who on screen and why they've never, beyond In the Ninth Doctor, had one reference to Grace by name. Like, they've never brought anything back from there because it's been a whole legal rights issue.
So funny and bad.
So funny.
It's just such a shame. Anyway, we'll get into the episode because there's more I want to say about all these things.
Yes, exactly. Well, for anyone who hasn't seen the TV movie in a while, please go watch it. You guess where you can find it. It's on bloody iPlayer. Go have a look. You just have to pay a TV license.
Even better, if you're in a rush, you can watch it on 0.5 speed, which I did. Or 1.5 speed, rather. I didn't watch it half as quick. Today, I was trying to get through the final act as quick as I could before we recorded. And so the final battle I watched on 1.5 speed, it was absolutely chaotic.
Oh my God.
I still made notes.
Breakneck speed, Henny.
It was chaos.
Well, for anyone who needs it, here is a little recap of the story. The Seventh Doctor is transporting the remains of his nemesis, the Master, back to Gallifrey after his execution on Skaro. However, the Master is not as dead as the Doctor thinks. The Master's essence escapes and sabotages the TARDIS, causing it to crash land in San Francisco on December 30th, 1999. The TARDIS lands in front of Chang Li, and when the Doctor opens the TARDIS doors, he's shot by the gang hunting Li.
Taken to the hospital, the Doctor undergoes surgery performed by Dr. Grace Holloway, but apparently dies on the operating table. The surgery, however, triggers his regeneration, and he's reborn as the Eighth Doctor. Meanwhile, the Master takes over a paramedic's body to regain humanoid form. He needs a Time Lord's body to survive and to be able to regenerate again, so he begins his search for the Doctor.
The Doctor, suffering from amnesia, recognises Grace and tries to convince her to help him remember who he is. The Master convinces Lee that the Doctor stole his body and uses him to open the Eye of Harmony in the TARDIS. When the eye opens, the Doctor is flooded with his memories and realises that unless the eye is closed, Earth will be destroyed by midnight.
The Doctor needs an atomic clock to fix the TARDIS and close the eye, which they get from the Medical Institute, but not before the Master has realised what their plan is. They get the clock and close the eye, but the Master knocks the Doctor unconscious and takes over Grace's body using mind control. The Doctor wakes up, chained above the eye, with the Master ready to steal his remaining regenerations.
The Doctor convinces Lee to side with him, so the Master kills him and forces Grace to open the eye. After being freed from mind control, Grace fixes the circuits in the TARDIS console, preventing the apocalypse. She tries to free the Doctor, so the Master kills her, but not before getting enough time for the Doctor to free himself. He pushes the Master into the eye and manages to turn time back by a few minutes, just in time to revive Lee and Grace.
The Doctor returns Lee to San Francisco and asks Grace to travel with him. She chooses to stay on Earth and says goodbye as the Time Lord gets ready to set off on new adventures.
And new adventures that you would only ever hear in audio form.
A Big Finish production.
We love stories. It's mad to me when you think about it that the Eighth Doctor is the longest running Doctor because he solely ran from 1996 through till 2005. And then even beyond with like regular stories, even today, like there's new Big Finish audios with him coming out today.
Yeah, it's pretty absurd. I mean, does that count?
I think it counts from 96 to 2005. I count that.
That he was the current Doctor. Yeah, I guess that's true. Or indeed one of the very, very shortest, if you think his reign was only the TV movie.
Yeah, I know. What's mad to me is that The Power of the Doctor, which was the 2022 special, was the first time that he ever featured on an episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah, and also that story not dissimilar to this one in terms of the Master trying to steal the bodies.
I was thinking that. Well, look, before we jump into our thoughts, because I've got some thoughts, we did reach out to you guys on X at Full Nose Twitter, and here's what some of you had to say.
Hamish said, "It's funny watching this in a post-New Who world where a camp master, massive lore retcon, unusual regeneration, and a companion love story barely raised an eyebrow, yet was so controversial at the time. It really paved the way for what's to come."
That is so true. That's so true, bestie. Aaron said, "The fact that this project went through development hell and we got anything out of it at all is nothing short of a miracle. Paul McGann is an amazing Doctor Who. TARDIS production design is stellar, and for an Americanized Earthbound story, it's as you'd expect. Paved the way."
Anthony said, "Peak 90s TV sci-fi, great Doctor, great companion, great Master. The TARDIS inside and out is a work of art. It's not perfect story-wise, but far from bad."
Jenny said, "I absolutely adore it, as with all the Wilderness specials."
At Unamused Marcus said, Eric Roberts saying, "I always dress for the occasion, lives in my head."
I always dress for the occasion. He was a good master.
Some of the line delivery needs a bit of discussion, by the way.
It does.
But a lot to say about this one. I had a note on this, first of all, which was interesting in terms of backstory. So I think some people will have seen the documentary Doctor Who Am I, which isn't on iPlayer. And I began to watch it in preparation for this, but I've timed my week horribly and I didn't finish it completely. But it was a really interesting documentary anyway. And that speaks to / heavily features Matthew Jacobs, the writer. And he talks about kind of how he approached doing the story, what the kind of pitch was behind it, but also what the experience was like with the fans after this came out.
Yeah.
Because if there's one thing that Doctor Who fans won't do, it's take change well. And he said he avoided conventions for years, saying he thought the fans would kill him. Also saying that the Doctor Who TV movie is very much like a tattoo that just won't go away. In the documentary, it's interesting. It's also like an exploration of American fandom culture.
Yeah.
And they spend a lot of time at kind of the big sort of like Gallifrey 1 type conventions, meeting different people. Daphne Ashbrook is in it as well. So that's really interesting. Basically, the idea was that a great way to introduce the Doctor to the American public was that we'd have the Doctor lose his memory and work out who he is.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think it actually isn't a bad story at all. They talk in the documentary about there being 2 fatal errors in the story. One is making the Doctor half human. We'll come back to that. One is making him kiss. And we'll come back to that as well. But that's what kind of the two most controversial story points are in this. But as we said, funny items now that don't feel that controversial.
I mean, literally in today's Who, we've had the Doctor. We don't even know what species the Doctor is anymore.
No.
And the Doctor has fallen in love with many a human and made out with many a people. And so, like, with today's lens, it's so funny thinking this was so controversial, but it really was when you look at what had come before.
Yeah, the Doctor doesn't even have like a straightforward gender or sexuality anymore. It's and people broadly accepted that? No, we're still reeling in timeless child discourse, but
oh, honey, that discourse isn't going nowhere.
It's not going nowhere. And every year there's a new discourse. Every week there's a new discourse.
Literally.
I also read some comments about this at Handy Dandy Reddit. I went over there and stole some opinions instead. And I saw some notes here that I really liked. Someone said, I think if you weren't there, then you don't realise how toxic the Doctor Who brand was at the time, like you just said, Sam. The series was repeatedly treated as a joke by everyone, including the Beeb. 1996 is also an odd time because it's before the current fandom culture really kicked off. Superhero movies weren't a thing, Buffy wasn't out yet, and sci-fi was just terribly unfashionable. Sure, you had Star Trek, but outside of that, any fantasy-type show had to disguise itself as another sort of media, i.e., X-Files is really a police procedural, and Red Dwarf is really a sitcom, but in space. And then someone else says, Doctor Who probably owes its revival to Buffy. Buffy proved that sci-fi and fantasy could find a popular audience.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know when Charmed came out, but Charmed, which is obviously an American fantasy series, I know it ran, I think it finished while New Who had started, but started before New Who. I think shows like that came off the back of Buffy, and it's things like that that really let people be like, oh no, like this can work and be popular and engaging and not a joke. Like I think of Dimensions in Time, which obviously like has a huge following now, like a huge cult following, but that was kind of treated as a joke. It's like, okay, we're bringing back all the people from Doctor Who, but they're in EastEnders land. You know, like it's funny, it's silly. Like it didn't feel like it was being taken seriously. And I think that was probably one of the big battles with this being made, is that people were trying to convince other people, which sounds ridiculous today that people might not believe that Doctor Who can be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't believed at the time.
Yeah, it's funny. And can I jump onto style for a minute, Sam? Can I jump onto style? I think
style.
I think it's a high for me rewatching this, okay? So
it's a high for me.
It's a weird one. It's so jarring seeing Doctor Who in this like very American 90s TV format is really odd. Like, I mean, literally as in like the way it's shot is odd. And even like the aspect ratio was weird to me. When it opened, the titles opened, I was like, oh yeah, this isn't in widescreen. Why did I think it'd be widescreen? It's a TV movie. The other thing was this like Gothic style was really weird. It looks like a Gothic teen TV show. Like it actually looks a lot like what Buffy becomes, which is really strange.
Yeah.
Like the design inside the TARDIS is shockingly different to anything they've really done before or after, and I love it. Like it's some of the best they've ever done. The costume, even the wig they've got on Paul McGann, all of that I think lends itself to that style as well. The character of the Master and his like devil eyes, and there's a lot of like gory horror sequences in this as well, like stuff that happens in the hospital. The way the Doctor regenerates is very like Frankenstein-esque as well in this. Even like at the end when the Doctor is being tortured by the Master and his eyes are being held open by this horrible like metal contraption on his head. It's so different stylistically to anything that I think we've had before or after.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I truly think that the reason they've been able to go in the direction that they have with TARDISes now, because none of the TARDISes of New Who look anything like the TARDIS of Classic Who, which is wild when you think that every single TARDIS of Classic Who was so similar, like the same sort of white room, the same small console in the middle of the room. And I think that the TV movie really kicked down the doors for being like, okay, you can take the core principles of this. It's a police box bigger on the outside than the inside. It's got this sort of like hexagonal console in the middle of the room with a turret in the middle, but you can push the design, you can do crazy things, and it can be this big vast space. And I love, like you said, the Gothic architecture of it. Almost feels like a church where you go out of the console room and into like the Eye of Harmony, and it's super. I at one point was convinced that it was just an actual church that they had dressed, and I was like, oh, that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
And then I realised that it's built like the walls have Gallifreyan text like built into it in stone, and I was like, oh shoot, no, they made this.
It. Yeah,
they made it. I think it cost $1 million to build, like on a $5 million budget. $1 million of it, I remember hearing, went into the build of the TARDIS, because obviously you've got so many rooms, and it shows. It's a really, really impressive set.
Yeah, I mean, on that, let's talk about the TARDIS for a second as well. I think this TARDIS is so cool. When I previously said I thought one of my favourite TARDISes was the War Doctor's TARDIS, and the War Doctor's TARDIS is in the dust, because this one is so cool. One thing I really like that made me laugh is the Seventh Doctor was going around at this time with just very literal labels on things. Despite having, like you said, these big cathedral walls with like Gallifreyan symbols all over them, he's also got this like wood panel console with still like all the old like techie metal buttons and things, and these kind of like really analog push buttons and switches and things. But he's also got labels on things like just written out in English and like a sans serif font, just like break, emergency landing. And when stuff flashes up on the screen, it's just in that like one like Times New Roman font, like initiating emergency landing. There's nothing like fancy about it. It's very like literal labels on things.
But I love that. That's that little bit of like Doctor Who, like
it's a great blend of styles. It's really cool.
Yeah.
But it's such a cool TARDIS. Like, there's been nothing like it. Also invented the jukebox. I mean, him sitting in his armchair with his tea, a stack of books, and he's got like a vinyl player going. He's listening to some music while he reads his book. It's fascinating. Yeah, and opening up into the Eye of Harmony almost felt to me like, or is that the cloister room that they're inside? I think it is.
I think it's the cloister room that has the Eye of Harmony in it.
Yes. They sort of go into it, I think, for the first time. I think it's the Master going into it with Chang Li. And they sort of pan down on the room. There's a little bit of CGI in it. And all these birds like fly down from the ceiling. Like, it's meant to feel like this room is so big that things are like living inside it. I think there's even like, there's like old autumnal leaves like rattling around in there as well. Like, it's like a cathedral, like where like a window is open somewhere. And it's almost like, oh, this is what Journey to the Center of the TARDIS should have been.
This is the thing.
Is like something you really don't expect. Like, it's not mechanical behind the walls. It's all kinds of different things. Yeah, because the cloister room is almost like a religious space. Like, it really leans into the fantasy element of Doctor Who. It's all like technology that is so advanced that it's like spiritual in a sense. Like beyond comprehension, which is such an interesting way of showing it. They're quite consistent to, I think, the character of the TARDIS in this as well. Even though it's this kind of beautiful, refined machine, and we get a few close-ups at the end of Paul McGann kind of like playing with these intricate controls as he kind of sets it off to the next destination. But at the end, it all freezes suddenly, and then he has to give it a little thump on the console to make it work. And it's so reminiscent of how, you know, every now and then, despite all the magic of the TARDIS, it just needs someone to like whack it with a mallet.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's there's something, knowing about how this movie got made, I'm actually so glad that we ended up with the movie we did, because it is pushing the boat out in so many ways, and it allowed like New Who to go into all these new directions, but it still takes all the core principles of classic Who, and it really continues the story. I truly do see Doctor Who as like William Hartnell to Ncuti Gatwa and everything in between. Like, it really is one consistent story, and I think I'm very lucky to still have the Doctor whacking the console like that.
And then the other thing I really liked with the character of the TARDIS, you know, is like the alive nature of it. When Chang Li comes in with the Master and Chang Li like leans on one of the pillars near the console, it kind of lights up a bit and it makes a little like, you know, mechanical sound, and the Master's like, wow, she really likes you.
She really likes you.
She really likes you. And obviously that's all like part of his plan to trick Chang Li into looking into the Eye of Harmony and unlocking it for him.
That and the gold dust.
Yeah, where did that come from?
Really random. Yeah, it's just like, oh yeah.
Did the TARDIS make it?
I feel like it's in the same way that like River was hiding whiskey in the walls. It's like you just collect
okay. He
stuff.
Just had a sack of gold.
Just had a sack of gold dust, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's loads of great bits that are reminiscent of the new series. There's a part where Chang Li like goes in, comes back out, does a lap around the outside, then goes back in.
Yeah.
There's a bit where a policeman on a motorbike like drives.
Oh, I
in.
love that bit. And the Doctor and Grace just kind of like watch, and then you hear it like
They watch from the side as he drives through,
comes back, and then like goes.
and then
back
you hear
out.
a screeching, and he drives back out again. And is so freaked out by the whole thing, he just doesn't come back. I really, really like that. There was loads about this TARDIS to admire, but I think this could be one of the best ever TARDIS designs.
It really is. It really is good. I'm so glad that they kept the TARDIS as like true to its core without feeling like it needed to stay true to the original. In the same way, I love what they did with the theme tune. Feeling like that they stayed true to the original for the TARDIS. They kept its roots the same, but they pushed it in a new direction. And I feel like they did that as well with the theme tune, where it is the Doctor. They could have made a whole entirely new theme tune, and they would have been warranted in doing that. But it is the Doctor Who theme. It is do 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 do. But it is so much more. And again, it's really bridging the gap between like the classic Who, like meow dum ba dum dum ba da, and the kind of like.
I love when you do a Who theme impression.
I love it. I love it. Hey, listen, of Dalecium Doctor Who theme tune fame, my voice is out there, baby.
You're in there. You're in there doing your woo-wee-oo.
My woo-wee-oos. But it is so sort of reminiscent now with the retrospect of New Who, and it really, I truly believe this needed to happen. This was the jumping stone between classic Who and New Who.
The theme is like this really great, beefed up, heroic, adventurous version of it. I don't know if they've done a version of the theme like this before. I'm happy to be corrected, but I think the classic theme until now had always been like the more spooky theme.
It was definitely like
the haunting theme.
The haunting theme. Like late 70s and 80s, like when we're going to Peter Davison, it definitely got a lot more like electronic, like meow, 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 like very like that. But it had never done, like this was like orchestral. This was like, you can imagine like a full band like going. This didn't feel like the harmonic.
You can imagine it, but it's still a MIDI file.
The Philharmonic, yeah, true.
But the whole soundtrack is more. I mean, that's another like parallel, right, with New Who as well. Is I think this was the first time we'd ever had like a real orchestral soundtrack in Who like this.
Yeah, no, it is.
And again, kind of worked as a convenient proof of concept for later on bringing the National Orchestra of Wales and how well that's worked.
It is wild that this had such a poor reaction at the time, but it is such a successful proof of concept, as you just said, for New Who. Like, it's like, see, it can work. Well, that didn't work, but it can work. I'm amazed that they let Russell do it.
Yeah. The titles as well are so similar to the 2000. The Vortex is like the 2005 Vortex, which is so funny.
I know.
It's like a slightly more faded version, but it's like just a slower version of the 2005 Vortex.
It is. You realise watching this, and I mean, I had seen this obviously before this episode, but like how closely tied the 2005 reboot is to this Doctor Who.
Yeah. I kind of, I guess, wanted to know as well, like, what did RTD and gang think of this? Like, the kind of people who ended up going on to showrun, Chibnall, Moffat, RTD. I couldn't find a huge amount about kind of a flat opinion on the movie. I don't think they've ever really given one. They've almost like commented a little bit on aspects of it, like the half-human discourse, but I'm sure it's out there.
Yeah, I'd be interested when we inevitably do sit down with Rusty Davies After Dark. I'd be interested to talk about that. I imagine that they didn't like the elements that most people didn't like.
Yeah.
And they knew that it wasn't perfect, but they saw in it the potential to do it right. And like we've been saying about the stuff that you can do to push the TARDIS and the theme and the characterization of the Doctor, all of that kind of stuff, I think that they saw elements that they knew could work and could be pushed and could be changed from the original. But I think also they could see the importance of keeping it fresh but linked to the original.
Yeah.
A big thing that I am so glad that they did in this is they open it with the Seventh Doctor.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that was a really, really smart move to make. I know that it was a move that not everyone wanted to make. The people pitching the show wanted to be like basically a fresh reboot, very, very similar to the 2005 Doctor Who. I think if the rights thing wasn't an issue, I can imagine them wanting to do a passover between 8 and 9 in New Who, but they couldn't because of legal issues. But I'm so glad that in this movie they did bring the Seventh Doctor in, because I think that is what saved this from becoming like a wilderness years project. Like, I think this is what kept this secured in Doctor Who lore. And I think that for wider classic Doctor Who fans, I think they would need almost like a hand holding, because it is so different from anything that was done before, that they needed someone to be like, oh no, it's still the same Doctor. It's still the Doctor, like it's the Doctor in Ace. It's still that man.
So the producer of the film actually talked about McCoy's involvement in this, and he said the BBC were absolutely putting their foot down and said that under no circumstances will Sylvester McCoy be allowed to start the film as the Doctor and regenerate into Paul McGann under any circumstances. And they said it was very important to me that Sylvester had a chance to have a conclusion. He deserved that, and he deserved more. I think the BBC still associated Sylvester McCoy with a dying show. They felt that opening with him, it linked it too closely. It kind of wrecked it being a fresh reboot. I think there was something said about there was maybe a negotiation where they essentially agreed, okay, he can be in it, but he can barely say anything. He needs to not talk.
I was going to save this for my fun facts, but it's just fitting so well into. I've got to jump in. The BBC originally were pitching Tom Baker coming back to open the film because he was, the most popular incarnation of the Doctor at the time. The American executive producer Philip David Segal insisted on Sylvester McCoy, like you said, as he was an avid Doctor Who fan and felt that he needed a send-off. The BBC One controller at the time, Alan Yentob, and the executive producer Joe Wright were very, very resistant to the return of Sylvester McCoy. Exactly what you were saying. It was like associated with the decline in popularity and the eventual cancellation of the series. But Wright eventually said that McCoy could appear as long as he was, quote, in it for a very short time and didn't say anything.
That's so mean.
I didn't realise this. I didn't realise this. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't have a line of dialogue, really, does he? I mean, I maybe he says like or something like that. Like he doesn't really. I don't really remember him saying anything.
Yeah, he's
in the bed when he's being like surgeoned on. He's undergoing surgery.
Yes, he does have a line. He's like,
don't. I'm an alien. Like, no,
I'm not
you
like
can't.
you. I'm an alien.
I'm not like you.
Cut me open. You'll kill me.
Yeah, basically like that. Yeah, he says a couple little. But he barely says anything.
I felt like he narrated the start, but he didn't, did he? That was a different voice.
That was a different voice. I still
that was
can't
Paul McGann, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was Paul. I still can't get the Daleks like exterminating out of my ears. Like, oof.
They're not seen either, are they?
No,
rights
they are.
Issues.
I think it's because I think rights issues, and they couldn't agree how they'd look, and they were like, they have to be in. I think the BBC was saying they want them involved in some regard, but they didn't have to be on screen.
Interesting. And speaking of the Seventh Doctor as well, his unceremonious death in this, I've put it as a hike that makes me laugh so much. I'm not sure that it's actually like the right send-off that they intended, because it is the most hateful killing of a character I've ever seen on screen. They were like the Seventh Doctor after he's at the end of his life. He's been traveling on all these adventures. He's la 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 la. What are we going to do to him? We're going to have him step out of the TARDIS in San Francisco, and he's going to get caught in the crossfire of a gang fight and just flop to the floor and die. And then after that, against his will, he's going to undergo surgery that will nearly kill him, and he's going to be put in the morgue just to make sure he's dead.
I think that was driven by the BBC.
They were like, all right, he can be in it, but you are going to deep freeze him before, we need to show that this man is buried.
He is going to be gunned down.
We're gonna humiliate this man. He's gonna beg for his life on the operating table. You think on some sick level that was meant to be almost like an allegory for the end of the show, just like Sylvester McCoy on the table begging not to be put under.
I would be steadfast in believing that this is all someone at the BBC has been like, okay, the Seventh Doctor be on him, but we're going to gun him down.
Right.
And then he's going to beg to save his life, and then we're going to kill him. And then we're going to put him in a fridge. And then he's going to change into this new guy.
And then he's going to reemerge like Jesus.
And then he's going to reemerge
back
like
from
Jesus.
The dead.
Literally.
Got it. Just like this show will be when Fox picks it up. Got it.
If only. The regeneration, talking about this, and I'm assuming we're probably going to talk about the Eighth Doctor in a moment, but I love this regeneration. I think it's so... We'd never had anything like this, and all of the classic Doctor Who regenerations look different. It's only from New Who that they all have the big exploding light thing. Yeah. I think it's, especially with the whole parallel that the guy is watching Frankenstein at the same time, I think that's body horror, morphing of the face, really contorting, you can see every cell in his body changing. I think that's so sick, and it's so unhinged, and it makes you so uncomfortable, but it's so good.
The effect looks brilliant as well. For a really complex effect, it looks fantastic. I guess my issue with the regeneration isn't how that looks, because I like that every regeneration before New Who was much more kind of everyone's different. There was no template for this big blast of light coming out your hands thing, which I think they've only really nailed with Jodie Whittaker's regeneration, which is so beautiful, and I wish they all looked that good. The bit I didn't like so much was it's flashing between the regeneration happening and this guy who works in the morgue who's watching Frankenstein on his TV, and it's doing this constant parallel between it's alive on the Frankenstein and Paul McGann kind of like, isn't there like electricity like fizzing in the room as well? And it's this whole kind of like very on the nose parallel between kind of regeneration and rebirth and back from the dead. And I don't know if I loved it. And then right after that, they do another parallel with basically Paul McGann emerging as Jesus. So there's this like blast of light, and he kind of stumbles out with this like cloak wrapped around him, and he's got like his Jesus hair, and he's bathed in light, and it's like holy music is playing. I mean, it's kind of funny. Is it the right way to do regeneration? I don't.
I think it's camp with retrospect. I don't think it's the greatest storytelling. I think I agree it's completely on the nose. I don't think it needed it, but there is something like it's when he comes out and like kicks down the door. I also love the idea that the Doctor's just super strong after regeneration. Like he just kicks down the door, and then that guy's like, runs away. Yeah. There's something camp about it. Yeah.
Another good consistency though, because like the Doctor is weirdly strong and confused after regeneration most of the time, and does have the kind of ability to survive that people don't normally have.
The tenacity. The
gore in this film really freaked me out. I felt so sorry for poor Seven, and I found it really hard to watch, actually. Him having like surgery against his will was the most unpleasant thing. Like forcibly sedated to a surgery you know is going to kill you. And like, do I want to say this on the pod? You've had keyhole surgery. So I was like, how did you watch this? Being like, oh, I've had that one. And them like fishing around and him being like, oh.
I'd had surgery, at some point last year. But watching this, it's weird because I was awake for it as well. And like luckily mine was consensual. Mine was I had to sign a lot of things to say that I wanted mine to be done. I opted in. But I'm watching and it is a bit like, oh God, imagine being there and like, and knowing, like you said, like knowing that if they do this to him, it will kill him. And he just can't, he can't do anything. They're just doing it anyway because they think it's what's best for him. What a traumatic generation.
Yeah, and then in the back of the car, it gets worse. So much of this film reminded me of Kill Bill. Wiggle your left toe. Felt very much like Paul McGann at some points in this. He's in the back of the car with Grace and they're escaping the hospital. / he's really freaking out Grace and kind of stalking her into her car. And then he's like, and he starts like yanking the surgical
they've like sewed something,
they've like out of himself.
They've like sewed him and he's like pulling out the like metal stitches.
I hate it.
I know. There's something about the visual of the dead Seventh Doctor's foot with the little toe tag for like John Doe that like, I hate it.
It's horrible. I guess they were like trying to do something that was like, this ain't your kids show anymore. This is grown up gritty Doctor Who, and we're doing kissing and we're doing gore and we're doing scary. And like I said, like the kind of like torture contraption that the Master attaches to the Doctor's head to like force his eyes.
It's so Clockwork Orange.
It's horrible. Like at a few points in this, like it's actually like hard to look at. There's like a bit of like edging on goriness in this that I'm really glad a Doctor Who American series never got to explore.
Yeah, there's a bit where the Master's spirit is like this like weird snake and it's looking for form and it finds Eric Roberts, brother of Julia Roberts, father of Emma Roberts. Did you know that's Emma Roberts' dad? It's Emma Roberts' dad and Julia Roberts' brother.
Okay.
There you go. A little fun fact for the pod. The bit where he's in bed and the Master like snake goes down his throat, and I'd assume it would just go in and he'd be like, oh, no, you like they like CGI his throat to be like bulging as if you're watching this like snake go inside. Oh, it's so gross. Also, he's so fit in this. Sorry, Emma Roberts, I'm going to talk about your dad like this. He is so hot in this.
Emma Roberts, do you think she like has watched any New Who?
No.
I feel like when it came back, he might have been like, oh, I was in this film.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe I don't. Maybe in like 2011 when like Series 6 was on, it was getting big in the States, and he was like, I used to do because he does Big Finish. You know he does Big Finish now, right? Eric Roberts.
I bet Emma Roberts has sat down at some point and had Westminster Bridge on in her living room, age like 13, and it was like dun, 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 with Emma Roberts watching TV. I bet she didn't like it.
I don't think she liked it. She probably has seen it. I can imagine her dad being like, I did a movie about this. But
I was in Doctor Who once.
I actually saw a picture recently of Eric Roberts at the most recent Gallifrey 1 with Derek Jacobi, who has now played the Master. Again, Big Finish, because it's ever expanding. He's played the Master the most on audio, because they're both doing Big Finish audio Master stories at the moment.
Yeah, my notes on the Master. I found the Master snake kind of goofy. There's a part where his like transparent goo snake self turns to camera and hisses. I didn't like that. I liked though that they kept in his hypnotism, and there was that element.
Mind control.
They did make. Like, they kept the Master as a manipulator. Great. They made him so evil in this film. Like, I guess in this, like, American spin-off universe, the Master is the big bad who would just keep coming back and he'd be, like, the ultimate threat. Whereas I feel like in New Who, he's not. The Master is often kind of a recurring villain, but not in himself any bigger or worse than the Daleks or the Cybermen or something different. I don't know. Maybe it's just because this film he was a villain, but
I think that when they brought the Master back, it was meant to be like, here we go. And I forget, like in Missy's first Missy story, I know she guest spotted at the end of episodes, but in the Cybermen two-parter, she was really evil. Like, she just killed people. But, like, I think the thing is with New Who, you kind of see the insanity of the Master a bit more. Like, you and especially like the Sacha Dhawan, like, you see they are insane. Whereas I don't necessarily believe that Eric Roberts' Master is insane. I just think he's evil.
Yes, that's the difference. This Master doesn't feel super insane. This Master feels just really nasty.
Yeah. He's a bad man.
He's a bad man. His interactions with Chang Li were really funny and stupid a lot of the time. The Master is much more conscientious and like socially aware in New Who. Mm-hmm. And in this one, there's moments where Chang Li's like, "You're killing me." And he's like, "You want me to kill you?" And he's like, no, you're funny. You're really funny. And he's like, "I'm glad one of us is amused." And there's another stupid moment where Chang Li goes into the TARDIS and he's kind of like creeping around and somehow the Master's already in there. And then he kind of pops out from behind a pillar or something and he thinks he's still a paramedic. And he's like, "Bruce, don't scare me like that. This place is creepy enough." It's like
the dialogue is definitely heavy-handed.
Yes.
There are so many lines. There's so many lines this as zingers, but there are so many moments where I'm just like, oh, this is why people didn't like it. Because I'm quite forgiving on it, but there's every so often, I kind of expect him to come around the corner in that moment and be like, "You like jazz?" Like, put on the little thing.
You like jazz?
You like jazz?
I mean, I think it's easy to look back on now as like a self-contained thing that's been like neatly slotted in with the lore. I can see that if you were there as like a diehard fan, you were so upset being taken off air. You're like, finally, this is it. This is the chance for it to make its great return. And then it was like, "Bruce, don't scare me like that." Like, I'd be like,
There's so many, like I said, lines in it that I can imagine them not liking at the time. I hope you remember. We need to talk about Paul McGann's Doctor as well. I've realised we've not really spoken about him. The
yes,
bit
we do need to talk about
when he gets his memory back and he's like talking about all this stuff really quickly, and then he suddenly goes, "Oh, I love it," and Grace is like, "What?" And he goes, "These shoes, they're so comfy." Like, and it's very like Third Doctor-y that like.
I love that. That's the moment I had as well.
Yeah, it's so cute.
He's so playful.
He's really playful.
They got so much of his character dead on. Like, you know, for any criticisms about the story or it being too Americanized, I think they were very true to the character of the Doctor in this, or you know, at least true to how we know the Doctor now. You know, we're much more familiar with New Who, so maybe looking back, it's not that out of place. But the silly little moment with like, "Yes. What is it? These shoes. Oh, they fit perfectly. Yes." And he kind of like skips off and it's, you know, just silly, goofy Doctor moment. But he also has nice, more kind of like reflective moments. Kind of, there's something strange but wonderful about the Doctor. He has that like
He's fantastical.
Fantastical, and he's got this premonition and ability to see the future a little bit as well, which they've touched on again with Ncuti's Doctor recently in The Church on Ruby Road. And he does it with a couple of people. He does it with someone who will become like a nuclear scientist or something one day.
Yes.
And then
the cleaner, isn't he the cleaner?
Maybe, yeah. And he's like, oh, answer the second question, Gareth. Don't answer the first, answer the second question. You know, one day he'll be this.
The first will look easy, but you have to go for the second.
Yeah, he has to pass the poetry exams first. He does it with Grace as well. And he's like, oh, isn't that why you became a doctor? You dreamt you could hold back death. Don't be sad, Grace. You'll do great things. Mm-hmm. So that was great and true to the character, I think. They also remembered to do a psychic link with the TARDIS that I really liked. So when the Eye of Harmony opens, the Doctor can feel something's wrong, and that's the moment at which he remembers he's the Doctor. Was great.
Yeah.
And I think another moment that gets slammed a bit is his wandering around barefoot like, who am I? People, I think, don't super love that moment. I actually thought some of that was quite interesting. I like the visual they did with the shattered glass when he sees his face like split into all these different bits. And I think there's 7 reflections he sees looking back at him from a quick count. And
oh, that's fun.
That was a nice little thing.
Yeah.
And then on the floor, there's just loads of glass in one spot for some reason. Yeah. And that's where he sort of has this little meltdown. But, you know, I always like that kind of exploration into how his mind works and how he like compartmentalizes different parts of his past lives as the Doctor.
I think that this movie, again, and I don't even know how intentional it was, because I know they wanted it on paper to be like a clean reboot, but I think that, and like you said, it might just be with today's lens with New Who. I think that it just fits perfectly into, like, I can imagine this being a Doctor that had just been Sylvester McCoy, and I can imagine this being a Doctor that will become Christopher Eccleston. Like, he's got really weighty, sort of soulful, insightful moments, and then really playful and silly. Like, he gives the jelly babies, like the callback with the jelly babies to the policeman on the motorbike. It's so funny and silly. One thing I love is how he gets his costume, because it's sort of the closest, I guess, like the third Doctor in this like flouncy Edwardian sort of Victorian-y kind of outfit. And with the third Doctor in Spearhead from Space, he just finds it like random clothes in the hospital, and it's like, there's no way even in the 70s these clothes would be here.
Yeah.
But I love that the context for this is that it's New Year's and it's a fancy dress party. So he took fancy dress clothes, but he naturally gravitated towards those like flouncy Edwardian outfits. And I think it's such a doctory outfit. I really, really like this outfit on the Doctor.
Yeah, I love it on him as well. It really fits with the kind of like timeless, if you will, aesthetic that he has, where he looks out of place, but also still looks nice.
I'm also really glad, because who knew what would have happened? They kept the Doctor English.
They did. Oh my God. Can you imagine the American Doctor? What's going on?
I used to be a British man.
I guess I'm the physician.
Well, isn't it crazy? We live in a world today where we're like, the Doctor can be a woman, the Doctor can be a man, the Doctor can be non-binary, the Doctor can have a twin regeneration. The Doctor cannot be American.
Yes, Paul McGann's Doctor I really enjoyed. The only thing maybe that I didn't like so much was the wig, which increasingly looked wiggy.
No, it really did look wiggy at points. What I find so funny is, do you know why they did it?
Why?
Because he did a screen test and he had that hair. He had that shoulder-length curly hair. You can find the screen test online. It's really gorgeous hair. Yeah. And they were like, yes, that's our Doctor. We love him. And then they cast him. And then when he came in for like fittings, he had shaved his head for a role. He literally had a buzz cut.
God.
And they were like, oh, that's not. And so they then had to quite quickly make a wig so that it would look like he did when he had a screen test. So when I was younger, I never really clocked it. Now, obviously, it's obvious that it's a wig. But the wig is a bit wiggy.
It's fine. I think the funny thing is it's meant to be heartthrobby. Like, I think it's meant to be like...
Yeah.
I think it's meant to be like gorgeous, flowing...
luscious hair.
I think he's meant to be a bit of a Leo DiCaprio. And it's not that. It's not that, I wouldn't say.
Oh, that's not.
But yes, great character, the Eighth Doctor. I mean, some people love the Eighth Doctor and cannot get enough Eighth Doctor and want nothing more than the Eighth Doctor series, which I don't believe is ever going to happen.
No, I think it could have around the 50th. Like when they established in Time of the Doctor that he looked the age he did in 2013. I think the day has gone now. I think it's too late.
I know.
But if we had... Do you know what? I still stand by this. I love John Hurt's portrayal as the War Doctor, but I just wish they had brought Paul McGann in as the Doctor in the Day of the Doctor, and it had been an 8, 10, and 11 story. I still wish that to this day.
I mean, I remember when it dropped, I was so shocked, and I was trying to explain to my friend like why this was a big deal. Like, they've got Paul McGann back, and it was like, okay. I was like, no, this is huge, and they just dropped it on like, I was just lunchtime on a random day on YouTube. It was like, oh, here's this. So crazy that they did it. I mean, maybe they could have aged up Paul McGann, I guess, to give the option of him coming back. I
think that it's a bit like people wanting a Joe Martin series now, which I still think would be good. I just think like there's a certain time for everything, and I think that time has passed for some things. Not time hasn't passed for Martha Jones coming back, but that's a story for another day.
That has not passed, and it won't pass until
it happens.
It won't.
It won't pass. It won't pass. We'll end up with, she was the age that Liz Sladen was, and we'll be like, we want a Sarah Jane Adventure starring Martha Jones.
Yes.
Literally. I think we should touch on Dr. Grace Holloway for a little bit. Yeah, Grace.
Dr. Grace Holloway. Grace's introduction in this, I love, doing just a completely needless sleigh running through the hospital in her opera dress.
In the ball gown.
The opera dress, otherwise known as a ball gown.
In slow-mo.
In slow-mo, so with like classical opera playing. Very gorgeous scene, beautiful.
Doesn't she just throw on like the surgeon apron like over the dress? Like there's no way they'd allow that.
It is that. It was almost just like an air of like, this is meant to be such a top hospital and she's such a top cardiologist that there's no question that they would make this allowance, because she's got like someone in this room who just like sets up the CD player for her because she's so great. Like it's unbelievable that she would have made a mistake because she's such a top surgeon.
Exactly. And yet they're like, babe, that man has 2 hearts. And she's like, that's impossible.
What? I can't be lost.
Yeah, literally. No, I love Grace. I love and Classic Who had done this a lot. It's not a new thing, but I love when the assistant, as we'll call her at the time, isn't like a damsel in distress. There's nothing damsel in distressy about Grace. She's headstrong. She is a doctor with the doctor. Like when the doctor's lost his memory, she's the doctor. And I do feel sorry for when he just kind of like stalks her in her car.
Oh yeah, he freaks her right out. She's very forgiving.
She's very, very forgiving. But I really, really like her. I think she's a really endearing character. I think she's funny. I think she's smart. I think that, again, the whole love story thing, I think at the time, and especially now, like I'm a bit like, I don't know if I'm buying this, but I get why they were doing it plot-wise. I like that the story ends with her choosing to stay on Earth. She's not like, yes, doctor, take me with you. She's like, no, I'm good here. Like, I'm really, really good. I know what I'm doing. I don't need to go with you, but have fun.
Yeah, I thought Grace was fantastic. A really nice parallel with Martha. A doctor meets a doctor, huh?
Doctor.
Honestly, same things you said. I really enjoyed her. I thought she was really funny. Like any good companion, I love her curiosity and trying to kind of solve the problem of, wait, but it wasn't a double exposure. This man had 2 hearts, and trying to get to the bottom of that. And I need to find that body. Some creep has taken my body. And like looking for him. And then the kiss, the romance between the two of them, it doesn't bother me, I think, as a fan of New Who, because it feels so like, that can happen. That's fine. I think probably if you're someone who'd only seen the platonic Doctor, it was a very unacceptable thing to happen. It almost felt like even if they'd carried on with the new series, it's not a thread they would have had to continue, because it felt that the first kiss was almost like I remember who I am. Mwah, celebratory kiss. I don't know what came over me. How strange. And then the final kiss, I forgot there was a second one. But the final kiss was almost like a tender goodbye more than it was a romantic kiss. So I was quite happy with it. I imagine that there was some TV exec breathing down their necks like, it's gotta be a love story. Come on, give us a little romance. Come on, does he get the girl? The girl? And just like, so this is Doctor Who. It's a BBC series. Come on, does he get the girl or not? Give her a
smack her on the ass and tell her she did a good job.
Come on, we want to see her kiss.
I can
Come
fully
on,
see
he's
that.
a man, ain't he?
Oh my god, I can fully see that happening. But yeah, I mean, it's a product of its time. And like you said, then when you go into the Big Finish audio adventures, I think Lucy Miller, she's not, I don't know if she's the next companion, but she's one of Sheridan Smith. You know Sheridan Smith is one of the main companions, the 8th Doctor.
Oh, what, on audio?
Did you know that?
I was like, IRL? Did I miss this? Oh, God. Okay.
I don't think she was the next one. Maybe she was one after, but I don't think they
not
ever
as
carry
like
on.
playing a character either. Like Sheridan Smith is canonically taken away at some point.
She's just Sheridan Smith. She's not Lucy Smith. She's Sheridan Smith. What's nice is that, like, if you want them or if you don't, you've got all of the Big Finish audio adventures from the Eighth Doctor as well, and you can see it's not even a question of like what would have happened. We know what would happen. It's all an audio adventure, and the whole love story thing doesn't carry on through that Doctor's era. So I think that it is what it is. Like it was, I think, a spur of the fresh regeneration moment, but it's not something that then carries on into its storyline.
That's kind of how I read it. I wonder if that was just a reaction to how bad the backlash was on it, but
Maybe.
it's funny them calling it like a fatal error. I'm not really sure it was that big a deal for me. But then people in 20 years will be saying, was the meta-crisis resolution that big a deal? Was the timeless child that big a deal? Like, is any of it that big a deal? No, not really.
This is when there's going to be 12 Doctors on the run at once. Like, you know,
yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen? Russell's running.
Grace's
the show, maybe.
ending as well, when she's kind of like, you know, chooses to stay at home, but feels a little sad about it. It felt to me exactly like how Donna was introduced, and initially it's like, I've got people here, I'm staying home, and then ultimately she spends the next year looking for the Doctor and wishes she'd never said no, and then comes back. It feels like had a TV series been picked up, they would have absolutely come back, and they would have been like, Grace, like, what are you doing here? And Doctor, what are you doing here? And they would have gone off again.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that happening. It feels like she's made the decision, she's stuck with it, but she would definitely jump back in the TARDIS if given the chance. I can see that if the series had been fully picked up, that even if she wasn't the companion for the whole series, that like towards the finale, he'd like maybe pick her up again and be like, Grace, come on, we've got to go. Like, I can imagine her coming back. I also forgot until rewatching this that Grace and Lee like fully die in this. Like they fully get murdered.
Oh yeah, they do. They are done, and they come back. Yeah,
they die. Like they get killed, and then it's the Doctor doing something with time that like revives them in the Eye of Heart. But I'm like, oh no, they died.
I did not understand that resolution.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Yeah, it did not make any sense. They just kind of reversed time inside the TARDIS.
Yeah, it was something where it was literally pre-wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, wibbly wobbly.
It was so wibbly wobbly and so timey wimey. Okay, I've got a few lows. One is the retinal structure of the human eye. The Doctor is half human. No wonder. And I was like, what? So there's this reveal within this where the Master like zooms in on the Doctor's eye using the Eye of Harmony. And it's like, oh my God, I recognize that eye. That's a human eye, which is a really odd thing to recognize. And no wonder I also didn't like really understand that. I don't know if he meant like, oh, no wonder
because he loves humans.
He's so attached to
humans
human
and companions.
And, the whole like, you know, like half human Doctor thing. It felt like they were trying to almost, for the sake of the pilot, throw in as many like little teasers of threads that could be pulled out later, including the Doctor's true origin, who is his mother, where does he come from, later on, and maybe if they were thinking about this as a bit of a fresh jumping on point, they were like, we can play with the lore a bit, we can change a few things. But I think pretty much everyone hated that. There was an explanation given by RTD, which was interesting, which was basically saying if the Doctor can indeed change race, then it's possible that Paul McGann's Doctor became half human for a period.
Girl.
And basically said, this was in an interview with Big Finish, he said, I don't like the half-human thing. He certainly isn't half-human, but it's less interesting to say it simply doesn't count. I've always wanted to put in a line where someone says to the Doctor, are you human? And the Doctor says, no, but I was once in 1999. It was a 24-hour bunk. Davies avoided putting in that dialogue, though, because he felt it was too self-referential and therefore inaccessible for casual viewers. So that's what the retcon would have been, is I briefly became half-human. Who his mother is in that context, I have no idea.
Russell, I love you to pieces. Love you, gal. Please, you're always welcome on the pod. But sometimes you do be saying things.
You just say anything, huh?
Sometimes you do be saying things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad that he didn't do that. I feel like somewhere in New Who, there has been some kind of reference to...
There definitely has been something later on that...
Even if it's not saying, I have been New... It's like thinking I was, like being convinced I was, or something. Like, I can't remember. There's something about it.
Yeah, there's... I think in the audio, they've dealt with it. I think David Tennant one of his audios deals with it. Anyway, does it need
Maybe.
dealing with? Not really. It is what it is.
No.
There's a moment then as well when the Doctor is like panicking because he's realised the Master can see what he's thinking and feeling, and he shuts his eyes and he's like, I'm from Gallifrey. He's blurting out all this exposition. And he delivers this one line in a way that really makes me laugh. He goes, the Master's arrival time, Lord. Arrival time, Lord. It's so weird. Go back and find that. I can't even mimic the way it was done. As I thought it, I was like, I will not be able to recreate that on the pod. He goes, the Master's arrival time, Lord.
Yeah.
It's such a weird delivery.
No, but I'm loving the way that you do it.
And then there's another delivery he does that made me laugh when he's walking through Grace's windows. Anyone who's not seen this TV movie is like, when he does what? When he walks through Grace's windows because the laws of physics are disintegrating because of the Eye of Harmony being activated. He goes,
I completely forgot that happened until I rewatched this. I was like, oh yeah, he really do.
He's like, everything's falling apart. He's like, at first in subtle ways, but soon in catastrophic ways. And he delivers it in the most like wooden way possible. And then he just kind of walks through the window while maintaining absolute eye contact.
And it's really like, it's like it's one of the ones where the window is jelly.
Yes. And the Doctor's like, the one thing I need. He's like, I need an atomic clock, which is such a strange, specific thing to need to resolve this story. I still don't fully understand why he needed it. Two things are really funny around this. One is they first mention an atomic clock on the news.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really obvious. You hear it the first time. It's like, and at midnight tonight, they're going to launch the most accurate clock in the world, an atomic clock. And then they echo it over and over again. It's, atomic clock, atomic clock.
We heard you.
No, it's like, an atomic clock, the most accurate clock, an atomic clock. And it keeps echoing and echoing. It's like, no, we got it. And my favorite line in this is, Grace, why did you not say you had access to an atomic clock?
She's like, well, it wasn't the first thing that came to mind when you hijacked my car.
Grace, why did you not say you had access to an atomic clock? And then I think maybe my final thing, Chang Lee's an idiot. Like,
yeah, he's
Chang
dumb.
Lee in this.
But he's also a kid.
He's a kid, but he really had a moment where he could have been like, oh my God, the Master is manipulating me. People have manipulated me all my life. Like, no longer, not anymore. Master has a moment of heroism, steps up, saves the day. Not at all. He's like, wait, you're manipulating me, and gets killed.
Yeah, no, they're
like,
really...
Truly, like, lies dead on the floor of the TARDIS. And when he comes back to life, the first thing he says is, Doctor, I have your things.
Ugh. I remember before I rewatched this for Wholala, I was like, people always talk about Grace, but no one ever talks about Lee. Like, Lee was a companion too. The two companions in this episode are Lee and Grace. Like, it's the three of them. It's a TARDIS team. And then I rewatched it and I was like, oh, Chang Lee's an idiot. Like, yeah. And it's the thing, like you said, like with the gold dust in the TARDIS, like you can have all the gold you desire.
You can, that gold will get you know more gold where that came from once you help get the body back.
And then at the end, he like doesn't learn any lessons. He gets brought back to life, doesn't care. And then he leaves, and the doctor, he's like, "Here's your gold." And the doctor's like, "Oh, keep it. I don't care." And he's like, "I can keep the gold." And it's like, no, you shouldn't keep the gold. You should be punished. You were a terrible
giving
person.
Back the gold dust.
You should be giving back the gold, Chang Lee. Like,
he gets more than Grace in the end.
Grace gets nothing but the memories.
He should have given Grace the other bag of gold. We had 2 bags of gold in this.
Give Grace some gold.
Give Grace some gold.
She has to get some new windows.
She's a San Francisco cardiologist. She's fine. One of the best in the city.
I don't need your gold.
I need her gold. She does sleep on a sofa in a hospital, actually. Maybe she should get a little bit of gold. The house was nice.
The house was nice. That was nice. I'm glad that this was when Doctor Who at least started to bring in some more diversity. So it was obviously set in the States, which was a diverse like background in that it's not British, it's in a whole new area. Having Chang Lee and the gang and focusing more on Asian American characters as well, I think was a big step that doesn't really get spoken about in diversifying what is on screen for Doctor Who. And I think obviously like Martha is the first full-time black companion, Mickey was the first companion of colour, but Chang Lee is one of the first people of colour to be travelling in the TARDIS and just not like a white British person. I think that is definitely a very conscious step that they made when bringing the story to San Francisco. I also like that it was in San Francisco. It wasn't just in like LA, we're in Los Angeles, home of the movies. Like it was in San Francisco. It focused on Asian American characters. And it had, Grace, a strong woman who's a doctor. surgeon, and they chose to do interesting things. One of the other very almost stories we got after they'd already put that handbook I was saying about to bed was that the companion was almost going to be, I think, a woman from World War II who had a talking pug, like a talking dog.
Sure.
I guess in reference to K9, but yeah, we very almost got that before. That was the story. I think that was even after Paul McGann was attached. I think that was the story.
There's so much about this development hell we referred to that I desperately want to know more about.
I want to do a whole episode where I teach you this.
Please teach me this. I love this. And also, listeners of the pod, if you'd like to tweet at Wholala Pod and share your weird little tidbits about what you know about development hell with us.
Oh my God, dude.
We'd love to share that, please.
Thank God it's not as wacky as it could have been. That's all I'll say. The TV movie, it has its weak storyline points. It has some weak dialogue at points. I'm not here to say that it's a perfect story, but I think that we all as Doctor Who fans are in like a genuine consensus. And I find that the people who were tweeting us said basically the same thing, that yes, this has its flaws, but it truly was the blueprint for what came before. It pushed the show further than it'd been pushed before. And it was very good for what it was. I think we are so blessed to have Paul McGann as a doctor in our long lineage of doctors. I think that he's really great. We had a great companion. It was an engaging story with a really good master. And I don't know about you, I was entertained.
I was entertained. One thing I was not is bored. Let me say that.
Yeah.
I think as well, for any criticism this film gets, I think they were quite true to a lot of the core aspects of what Doctor Who is and who the Doctor is. Maybe too much. Maybe that's kind of what the issue was, is they probably leaned a bit too much on the lore and going too deep into the TARDIS, Gallifrey, the Eye of Harmony, these like more complex aspects, maybe too soon. Maybe more of that should have been a bit more of a mystery. Maybe in this, we just needed to meet the Doctor as, you know, a mad time traveling scientist with high stakes on a silly adventure. Maybe we didn't need to have the Doctor kind of go through all these core aspects like the Daleks and a regeneration and, you know, two Doctors in the same adventure as a first story.
Yeah, I think that is what they successfully did with the revival in 2005, in that we were dropped into a story with a new Doctor. We didn't know really anything. I believe Gallifrey wasn't mentioned by name until The Runaway Bride.
Yes, I think we did say this. And I've always found it weird that we went so long without knowing that. Yeah, when I watched the show for the first time growing up, I assumed it was just a secret. We didn't know where the Doctor was from.
And then you watch Classic Who and you're like, oh, no, we go there a lot. Well, look, I think that for all of its flaws, I'm so glad we have this movie. It's definitely the pinnacle of the Wilderness Years. And there's a lot more to explore in the Wilderness Years as well. We've got plenty of time in the future to talk about that on Wholala.
We do indeed. We do indeed. We will be back.
Normally, we play a little game of Camp or Dem right about now, but we're going to do things a little differently this week.
Oh, yes. We're doing things a bit differently. We have some camp moments in mind, but we would love you to tell us what you like about the TV movie. If nothing else, as a bit of homework, go and have a look at it on iPlayer. It is absolutely chocker with funny moments. If you pull something out of context that you think is really funny, please tweet it out, Wholala Pod. We'll retweet it. Tell us what your camp moments are.
Yeah, literally, tell us and we'll let you know. Are they camp or are they dump? But don't worry, I'm not cheating you here. I may not be coming to you with camp or damp, but I am coming to you with fun facts.
Oh, go on. Give us some fun facts.
So one fact that is actually really sweet, I think, and I didn't quite realise the timings of this. So the UK television broadcast for this ended with a dedication to John Pertwee, the third actor to play the Doctor in Doctor Who, and one of the most popular, I'd say, as he died a week before this aired.
And John Pertwee, I think, is absolutely one of my favourite Doctors.
Yeah, no, I think I didn't really realise the timings, because I always think of him in the Wilderness Years because he's like, you know, in the Children Need Special Descenders. But yeah, he passed away a week before this aired, so they dedicated this to him. Did you know that Christopher Eccleston was one of the people considered to play the Eighth Doctor, but he declined to audition? He was offered an audition because at the time he said that he felt that he was not yet established enough of an actor and didn't want to be associated with a, quote, brand name so early in his career.
I'm so glad he turned it down, because what a waste, simply. It would have been great. It would have, I don't know, like, listen, I'd love to see that version of it. I can imagine it actually quite clearly as well in my head. I wonder as well if he'd have stuck with his northern accent for it, or if he'd tried or if they make him modify it, I doubt he'd want to.
I think they'd make him RP it. I think they'd make him RP
which
it.
would be such a shame.
Yeah.
You'd lose so much of the magic of the Ninth Doctor with that.
Lots of planets have a no. Another future Doctor involved in this, however, was Peter Capaldi. Now, Peter Capaldi also declined to audition for the 8th Doctor because he felt it was unlikely that he would be given the part, and then he later went on to play the 12th Doctor.
It's really weird if you look on Wikipedia, the number of people who auditioned to be the Doctor in this who've gone on to be in Doctor Who in some way. There's I think 4 or 5 people who auditioned for this who've now gone on to be in Doctor Who.
Oh yeah, Rowan Atkinson was considered for the role, and he's played the Doctor in a comic relief sketch in the Wilderness Years as well.
Yeah. And a good one. 2
other little fun facts for you. So the Sonic Screwdriver comes back in this. It was the first time that it had been on Doctor Who since the Visitation Part 3, which is a 5th Doctor story. The 6th and 7th Doctors never used the Sonic Screwdriver.
I hate that. I feel like everyone should get a go with it.
I agree.
It's also weird that it's never shown in... Is it shown in this one? It's shown in this one, isn't it? But it's not used.
Yeah, it's because Lee steals it, and it's kind of just like off to the side. The Master holds it every so often, but it's never really used. And the 8th Doctor is also the only incarnation of the character to never encounter the Daleks on screen.
Oh.
I think those are the 2 rites of passage. Every Doctor should use the screwdriver, and every Doctor should see the Daleks.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's why we need more time with him. You know what? A 22-episode series would have seen that.
Would have seen it.
How many of those going to be? 22?
It was going to. Well, what they were hoping for was a 22-episode series, and I've actually got a list in the handbook of some of the episodes they would have remade. They would have remade The Pirates, The Talons of Weng Chang, Earthshock, which is a Cyberman story, The Horror of Fang Rock, The Celestial Toymaker. There'd have been an episode called Don't Shoot, I'm the Doctor, The Tomb of the Cybermen, and they were going to call the Cybermen the Cybes, The Yeti, Ark in Space, and Genesis of the Daleks.
There's at least 2 stories in that list that I don't trust them to have made sensitively in the 90s.
I completely agree. Well, look, another character that the 8th Doctor never saw on screen was the Cybermen. But guess who will be seeing the Cybermen soon?
Who?
It's you and me, Alasdair.
Are we?
Because next week we are visiting Rise of the Cybermen, the 2006 episode.
Oh, we did agree that, and I'd forgotten. What a lovely surprise.
Your eyes were like, where
are we going? What are we doing? What do you mean?
Where are we going? Yes, next week we will be looking at the 2006 episode Rise the Cybermen. Is a 2-week 2-parter for Rise the Cybermen and Age of Steel.
I love it. I can't wait. I've got fond memories.
I'm so excited to dive into this one.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, dear listener, for joining us on this adventure into 1996. If you did enjoy, please reach out to us on all of our social media. We are at Wholala Pod everywhere. X, the app formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, all of which at Wholala Pod. And you can also rewatch old episodes of the podcast on our YouTube channel, which is also at Wholala Pod.
And you can support the pod by engaging with us on the socials, leaving us a review wherever you get your podcasts, putting us on your story, sending us a tweet, sending the pod to someone that you think would enjoy it. You can even donate to our coffee when we get to how many? £4,000-ish. We're going to buy a Dalek. We are nowhere near that yet.
This is just our reoccurring theme. We need to make a pot every time we get a coffee
it's
and put it towards our $4,500 Dalek.
No, I'm only joking.
Whose house would it go in, yours or mine? I think it would have to go in yours.
Mine, please.
Mine, please, yeah. We'll take it in turns. You can have it Monday to Friday and I'll get weekends.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week when we look at the Cybermen.
See you then.